everybody. We are old school. Live studio ain't working for me today. So, we have got to talk about all the bullshit that's going on in America. Because what we need to figure out is a way to build long term power. How are we actually going to fix this and make sure that we can speak out and have our voices be heard? Because it's so difficult. Because we are doing what we always used to do to make our voices heard. We went outside, we shouted loud, we demanded change. But unfortunately, that's not going to be enough when the politicians and the corporations are working together to screw us over. We have to understand that mass action is our way out of this. Mass action is the way that we can actually create change. But right now, our two strongest tools of mass action, boycotts and protesting, will not work, because boycotting only works when we have enough corporate or local options that are not corporate. And protesting only works and striking only works once we have enough people that have built an alternative economy to support themselves. So if we try to strike now, Emily, it will result in us not meeting the demands that we want, because we cannot pull out of the corporate system completely. The majority of people don't have access to local groceries. We are trying to fight back against a system that has made us depend on them. So when you say go buy local groceries, that is not possible for 50, 60, 70% of Americans, either due to geographics, due to efficiency, or due to gosh dang cost. So what we first need to understand, that if we are ever going to have an actual effective boycott, we have to create local alternatives that compete with corporations on geography, cost, and effectiveness. The next steps are to join the Discord, hop into this, and start breaking out by state. That is what we need to do, is create local action networks. Once we create these local action networks, we build what we need. Corporations don't actually offer anything of value. Corporations do one goddamn thing and one thing only. They connect people with the people that actually provide the goods and services. We eat the food. We have people in our county that grow the food. Corporations are the one that restrict access. They control access. They buy all the food. They make sure that they control all the food so they can charge us whatever we want. Healthcare. They do not provide us healthcare. They say, hey, you need healthcare over here? Well, look, I can connect you with these doctors and these nurses over here. All they do is connect the people that need the goods and services with the people that provide the goods and services. We can do that too. It's just that when we start thinking about it, we're like, how can we offer as much as a grocery store? I don't care. Offer one thing. That's it. We're showing people that another alternative economy is possible. We're showing them that, hey, yes, it will have to be step by step. We will need 100 different businesses for 100 different things, and each of them have to look out for the community and be working for people instead of against them. But we can build a better system that people actually recognize, oh, this is incentivized to take care of us, right? Because right now, the corporations are not evil. Their incentives lie to screw us over to make them money. If we change their incentives, they would stop screwing us over to make us money. And if we figure out that no matter how hard we push back, no matter what you want to do, voting, speaking out, or otherwise, it will not work. Because we are fighting not just against politicians, but politicians and corporations. Corporations keep us broke on purpose, so we can't just strike for 6 months. Politicians make sure that there are no other local options other than corporate ones. So if we did want to strike and rely on local options instead, we can't even do that. We have to recognize that our strongest two actions are strikes and boycotts. But how do we make strikes and boycotts more effective? Well, we need to get all the people that are protesting and angry and participating in mass action to say, hey, if you want to do this again next week, if you want to do this again in 2 weeks, we need to create local alternatives that help sustain the boycott, that allow people to strike longer term. This is what we do. And then we create a feedback loop. Y'all, we can do this. We get people to show up to protest and strike and fight back. Normally, people do that, but then they burn out because they don't see progress, because they aren't seeing the long-term goal. Well, what if we give them the long-term goal? Build enough businesses to compete with corporations. But these businesses will not be in it for the money. We will make sure to incentivize them to take care of people. They are stewards. They are community stewards. Along the way, corporations were always supposed to be stewards. You can't own somebody goddamn food because we grew the food on our land, right? You can't own somebody's health care because it's another human that's like, oh, I would like to provide health care to those other humans, right? That's the issue. It's not that there are no Saturday morning markets. Those markets have been designed for capitalistic purposes to make money. The incentives of those markets are wrong. Those markets were created by people that were probably started the business. We need connectors. I don't want farmers doing the marketing to create a farmer's market. Farmers should be focusing on food. We need to go and connect them because farmers markets are more expensive because generally it is the farmers taking on all the risk, doing all the marketing and doing all the work. If we showed up to a farmer and said, hey, we need 100 dozen eggs a week, because all this is starting off having you and 5 friends find 10 to 20 people each. And you don't tell them, hey, we're dropping out of the system. Do you want to drop out too? No. You say, some of us are sick of buying food from corporations that actively hate us. So we're going to start getting a food buying group together and buying just eggs from our local farmer. That's it. You start off with one product and we show people, hey, it looks like we need this corporate system, but we really don't. And this is how we show people that we don't need them, right? Absolutely. We can take EBT, we can take SNAP. People just need to understand that we don't need corporations. It didn't always used to be this way. Corporations don't even actually add much value. All they really do is connect us with the people that provides goods and services. You need food to eat to live. Somebody in your community was like, hey, I wouldn't mind growing some food for my people in my community to eat. And then normally they would sell it to you. That's what used to happen. But we would go and drive to 7, 8, or 9 different farmers. And then we were sick of going to 9 different farmers and still not getting what we need. So the corporations were like, hey, what if we bought all the food from all the farmers? And you just came to our local, our centralized store and bought everything. And for a while, it worked out for us, right? We could listen to them and it all worked just fine. But then the person that started the corporation sold it, right? They sold it to a private equity, most likely. And that private equity didn't care about taking care of the community at all. They were in it to make their money back. Hey, we didn't control a population's food supply to be nice. We controlled a population's food supply because that's how we make some gosh dang money. So that's what they did, is they stopped being stewards of what we needed to live and they started controlling it for profit. And essentially, they've taken what we need to live. And life shouldn't be this way. Yeah, that's essentially the idea, but it's not even farmers markets. It is the fact that we can build our own. There you go, Life and Coda, that we can build our own, because a strike doesn't work without food sovereignty. I imagine this position like as a community steward. And what if for every single zip code, we had a community steward that was there to push back against the corporations? Hey, corporations, we know you can make a lot of money selling us back the very same food that we grew. We know you can make a lot of money selling us back the very same health care that the people in our community want to provide us. But we're not going to let you make a shit ton of money off of our food. We're not going to let you make a shit ton of money off of our health care. Well, that's why we're not going to let them regulate us. We are in charge. We are the government. It's so funny. We're going to let the government let them. No, like we are quite literally the government. We are also the corporations. We've forgotten this. And then they've taken away the only thing that gives us leverage. The only thing we actually need to do to push back is say, fix this or we are not participating, right? Whether it's in a relationship or a marriage, fix this or I'm out. Whether it's with a roommate or a friend, fix yourself or I'm out. Or whether it's at a job, fix this or I'm out. Or whether it's a part of a political system where they're taking our lives in broad daylight. The strongest thing we can do is say, fix this or we are not participating. So they took away the strongest action that we could take, because the strongest action we can take is to say, fix this or we are not participating. Well, Whitaker, what we need to do is just recognize that strikes and boycotts are the most powerful thing. Protesting, striking, and boycotts are very powerful. But what they should be is the top of a funnel. When striking and boycotts and protests are the end game, people get burnt out. What we are doing is we are showing people, you know what would make this strike and protest and boycott last longer? If we had 10 more local alternatives, 10 more local businesses that supported the community, that could be there for them. Life and Coda, that is difficult because the corporations could literally be like, hey, if you don't go back home and stop protesting, we're not going to let you buy your medicine. So, what I think it is the stores are still going to be open. So here's what it is. Life and Coda, this is why a local pharmacy is so important. Because the big, giant corporate pharmacies could literally be like, if you protest or if this city is protesting, you're banned from buying medicine, right? So what I think would be then local pharmacies that we say, hey, local pharmacies, local grocery stores, you're exempt from this strike. This is a corporate strike. Because what we are going to do is we are going to stop feeding the beast. We are going to stop feeding, stop being, fed by the same people that screw us over. So that's where we are understanding that if we have to want to take back charge, we need to have leverage. The only thing that gives us leverage is protesting, striking, boycotting. But there's no real leverage in those actions. If for protesting, we can only do it for a day. If for striking, we still eventually have to go back to corporate options, or we have to go back to work. And for boycotting, we have to go back to corporate options. So those three things, until they are secure, we will never be able to have a long-term pushback or long-term push forward. But here's what it is that we need to build the small businesses before we have a corporate strike. Y'all, let's talk about what a grocery store really is. A grocery store is a bunch of people on this side saying we need to buy food. And it's a bunch of farmers going, well, we don't really like standing at a booth for 8 hours and chasing money and doing all this. It's so much easier and so much of a habit to just sell it to the corporations. And then those corporations take care of selling it to everybody at the grocery store. What we need to do is step up and understand that corporations don't do shit besides being middlemen. And they are middlemen that don't add any value, but somehow they convinced us that they're so important that they literally screw us over and hate us. And we still show up there because we don't have any other options. So let's build another option. Then the first thing somebody says is, how do I compete with a grocery store? Well, you don't try to get all the items. You start with one thing to show people that local options are possible. And you start with eggs. You don't even need to get 50 or 100 people. You need to find 15 people. And then you need to rely on 4, 5, 6 other people in your community that also find 15 people. And then soon you'll have 50 people that want to buy a dozen eggs a week from the local farmer. Then you call up the local farmer and you say, I got an order for 50 dozen eggs a week. 50 dozen eggs a week. What price can you give it for? What price can you give that to me for? And because you are bringing them consistent, reliable business that is bulk, that they don't have to chase after single orders, you're basically bringing them a consistent bulk order every single week. They'll be able to offer a lower price because you're becoming with a massive amount of orders for them. And what do farmers hate? They hate chasing after people. They hate marketing. Farmers want to farm. They don't want to market, right? And this solves all of it. So you are actually providing a service to the community. We're doing the same. You're providing the same role that a grocery store is. It's just not like, hey, I'm here to get rich and make money. No, I'm going to provide eggs to my community. We're going to add more things when we need to. And that's actually what creates a bigger, stronger protest, blackout, and strike. Because what we have to recognize is that our actual power is with protesting, striking, and boycotting. But protesting, striking, and boycotting, particularly to strike, people need money. For boycotts, people need alternatives. And if we have enough people who we recruit from the strikes and the protests to build the alternatives, then we've got a feedback loop, y'all. That's when shit starts getting real. That's when we understand, local options and having more economic freedom increases the effectiveness of our strikes and our protests and our boycotts. And then every single time we strike and protest and boycott, we recruit people into building local alternatives, which then in turn makes our strike and protest and boycott even more effective. That's what this is. Paul, that is a scam account. I'm sorry about that. So if you are feeling this, type me in the chat. Join the Discord. That's where Life in Coda. We need to start on 2 different options. We have the now and later plan. We have the immediate shit that people are like, I need to get started now. Well, that is very important, but we are not losing sight of the long term. Everybody that is saying, I need to do something now, yes, we want you out there. Get as many people as you can that are fired up. But we want the structure that keeps people fired up long term and takes their energy and all the effort they're putting in and puts it towards a long-term goal. So everyone in the entire country, no matter where they are, understands, okay, Building local alternatives will make the next protest and strike bigger. The protest and strike is where we find more people to build local alternatives. This is a flywheel feedback loop. Local alternatives create the ability to sustain mass action. Mass action is only sustained when there are local alternatives. So each of them need to support the other. And this is what we are building. We are understanding that power does not lie with the politicians, with the leaders. We can't write better laws to get ourselves out of this, because the corporations and politicians have been working together to make sure we stay broke and out of options. Because if we have no other option than the corporate system, and if we have no economic freedom, we will never be able to flex the strongest muscles that we have, which would be striking and boycotting. And it's mass protests that lead to enough people seeing there are enough energy for striking and boycotting. So working backwards, what's up, Jeff? Good morning. Working backwards, we need to say, okay, well, in order to fix this shit, we all need to strike and boycott. But in order to actually strike and boycott effectively, we need other alternatives. But in order to have alternatives, we need lots of people that are frustrated, angry, and have energy. Well, Paul, that's where, even if the first start is just getting people into the Discord, finding them in the meeting area, we are about to have the avalanche. Because it might feel tough right now, but what if the 100 organizations that we are partnered with across America all got onto this at the same time and understood we want to make our protests more powerful. We do that by creating local alternatives. Those local alternatives, in turn, feed the strength of the protests and the boycotts and the strikes. So that will make the protesting, boycotting, striking stronger and more powerful. That brings more people, and the more people we have that we can recruit to then start building the systems that make us more powerful. It literally is a feedback loop that if we can get started on the right path, we can change our country. Because corporations don't actually offer anything of value. Corporations are simply middlemen that control access to the things we need to live. You have someone in your community that grows food. You need the food. Corporations sit in between you and the people that grow the food, not because they want to provide you the best possible, but because they want to control access. Because they know that if they want to make a couple extra bucks in the quarter, all they need to do is raise your food prices. Well, there we go, Chad. At least it wasn't me. And good morning to you, sir. So this is what is happening. People are angry. People are frustrated. So Iacona, it's 2 lanes. It's 2 lanes. It's now and later. The now is what gets people excited. It feels right. Protesting, striking, boycotting. It gets our frustration out. But as we all know, it doesn't really lead to anything long term. Because unless you are boycotting and striking, and all the people boycotting have massive amounts of non-corporate options, and all the people striking have lots of savings, then the politicians and corporations are going to do a calculation. What's going to fold first? Will they need to go back to work to buy their food and to afford their housing? Or will that happen before we fold and need them to come back into work? So what we're saying is the more local alternatives we have, the more leverage, the more we mean it when we say, fix this or we're not coming back. So it will take a long term, but not really. Because imagine this, 100 people in a single state all decide that they would rather buy their eggs from a local source than a corporation. Say I get 100 people in Maryland. I've already got 15 or 18. Say I get 100 people in Maryland. I tell them all, hey, corporations control all of our food. They screw us over every chance they get. Let's stop supporting them. Let's call up our local egg farmer and see what price they'll sell us 50 dozen eggs a week. Well, it turns out that farmer is pretty excited to sell locally too. They do not like selling to the corporations. And especially when it was, oh, this is why I got into this. I can take care of people in my community. I can actually hand off my eggs with a smile. And the people that I'm giving my food to are actually people in my community. This is really cool. This is kind of why I got into this. You know what? And since you're bringing me 50 dozen eggs a week, I don't have to do the marketing. I don't have to chase payments. I can actually give you these eggs at the same price as that I sell the corporations. I sell them to the corporations for $3.50 a dozen. And then now we've got 50 people buying their eggs from somewhere else for a cheaper price than the corporation. You're getting a local product, but there's still somebody in between that is the connector, but they are a steward. They are not the owner. They are not the corporate CEO. They are the steward. That's what we need to understand. Stewardship over ownership. Paul, everything is easier. It's just, and what I truly believe is we will change this country with 200 people that are willing to start this idea, because this is the start of a co-op, a food buying group that works with farmers to create co-ops. You know what else we have is online consignment stores. Rather than us donate a bunch of stuff to a corporate, CEO goodwill, we go ahead and we have a neighbor, someone in our community, take our pile of trash and go resell it to everybody else. Then based on what they resell it for, you get a consignment check. We have this in our city. It is incredible, especially for young parents. We have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. We have bags and bags of clothes and toys that we usually donate, but no, we give it to the consignment. They sell it to other people at a great price, really low. Like I'm talking like $1 for an outfit. We don't have to shop at corporations. We create local alternatives and we put the money back in our community. And once people see that living a life without corporations is possible, we don't want to do this. Y'all, I think if we had the majority of people pick between a fully formed system that works for them, that doesn't say, oh, we're your healthcare provider. Well, let's set it up so that healthcare provider is incentivized to make as much money as possible versus taking care of us the best they can. That makes no sense. Why do the people that produce our food, why are they incentivized to get us unhealthy rather than provide us quality food that is healthy at an affordable price? Because they're just incentivized by the wrong things. Because somebody made a decision 100 years ago in Dodge versus Ford Motor Company that said that they didn't think. Because what that says is, shareholders over employees. But they didn't stop to think, what actually makes a human being productive? What actually makes a human being live up to their fullest potential? Is it making it so it's really difficult for them to buy food and to buy housing and to buy healthcare? Or is it making it so that the things they need to live are ours, right? So it's not going to happen like that. People, you won't get 50 million people to agree to sacrifice. That's where people have lived in this system their entire life. They only participate out of habit. They didn't join because they ideologically convinced themselves that this system is better. So when we go and we try to have a moral argument with someone to get them to see that the system is bad for them, they are always going to defend something that they depend on to live. This system provided the house they grew up in, the job they have currently. They do not know that there's any other way. Paul, I'm part of that. We grew up hearing whispers of a different world. Oh, businesses used to care about us. General stores, you used to know the name of the person that ran your general store. Grocery stores were a part of and cared about their community, right? It really is. They've made it habit. And I wouldn't even say convenient. I'd say more efficient. And we don't know any other way. I'm almost 40. There is not any other way in the most of the places that I've lived than just drive into the corporate grocery store. It's not even convenient. It's efficient. Because if you need food and the farmer's market's only open on Saturdays, right? So what I truly believe is that what we need to do is not sit there and convince people that another system needs to be built. Because it's like trying to convince people, hey, let's stop riding horses and let's switch over to cars. If you tried to get a bunch of people before you built a car and you went to a bunch of horse owners, and they don't own the horses because they made a decision to. They own the horses because that's all they've ever known. If you went and said, hey, let's stop using horses and switch to a car, most people would be, no. Just because the horses are all they've ever known. That's what they depend on to live. And they cannot fathom what a car would do to improve their lives. So until you build the new system, the car, they are never actually going to see it. Paul, you're so right. And that's where we can't introduce the idea of a car, right? Because literally anytime I say community steward, people are like, what is he talking about? But I own a small business. I recognized long ago that the more I lift up the community and put the needs of the community and people first, the better my business does, because you create a culture where you support the community and you put people over profits. And when people see that you are putting them and their community over profits, they will want to support you. Costco is a big ass corporation. They've still figured out a way. It takes more work, but they do seem to put people over profits. That they offer the membership, most of the goods they sell are at cost, and a lot of the money they make is on the membership. And the membership's not that crazy. This is how you build a better system. You simply create something that works better for people. Oh, rather than making the money off the products, we can charge people to be part of our club, and then we can sell them products at cost. And because the products that we sell are so much cheaper, people won't mind paying the $50 or $60 extra to be part of our club. It's the same exact thing. And then these are small business co-op ideas. Back to the eggs, right? Back to the eggs. If we had people set something up where you were getting 100 dozen eggs a week, and you had 100 people order in a dozen eggs, and every week you'd call up the farmer and be like, I need another century. I need another 100 dozen eggs. And then the farmer's selling them to you. Hey, I can give you a 25% discount since you're bringing me 100 eggs a week. Well, you can go ahead and tell them, hey, prices are the exact same, but now we're selling the eggs for $3.25, and there's going to be a 25-cent coordination fee, right? Absolutely, Black Camilla Petals. That's what this is. People do have a yearning for community. I went through this. So I started another business before my community-based business, and I just didn't care about it. It was just selling things. As soon as I started the community-based business, I felt like I had found my calling because I was able to make a living by providing a service that people needed and by taking care of my community. It's incredible. And because most of us are human beings that love our community and only want to support it, as soon as you start making enough money to support yourself, you start asking, how can I give back? Because if you're making, a little bit of money, enough to live off of 10 people, when that 11th person comes in and you're not a greedy asshole, and that 11th person says, I don't have any money, but I can do some work for an hour, you go, you know what? I'm all right. I've got what I need. I have my security. I might as well let this person work an hour so that they have some food tonight too. And god damn, that makes you feel good, because you are able to be offering a service in the community, you're making a living doing it. And then when people come along that are in need, you can provide for them. And you say, just get it back when you're back on your feet. That's what community is all about. That's what we've lost. And Paul, you said it, Handyman is already community-based. Building homes, doing work. Every single guy that does a job, every single tradesperson relies on somebody else. If you're, doing the site grading, well, the foundation guy relies on you. The cement guy relies on the foundation guy. The framing person relies on the cement person. The electrical and plumbing relies on framing. Yet somehow the asshole in the truck sitting on his butt all week, they're the ones that make the money, right? So, Sick Chasen, we have our meeting tonight. We have our Citizens Assembly meeting. We meet every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I know, Paul, but that's my favorite example to give to it, where it's like all these people already rely on each other. So we should have tradesmen co-ops where the electrician, the plumber, the framer are all in the same company, and they own the shit, not some dude up top. So it is on Zoom. That's awesome, Black Camilla. It is on Zoom. So if you join the Discord, we'll be sending out the link for the meeting tonight. The meeting tonight is where you meet people in your state, start breaking out. Well, that's where, Paul, that's just our idea. The same way that we were talking about building our version of a grocery store, local food distribution, we were hoping that we can get together groups of tradespeople and understand. So, Sick Jason, that's what this leads to. If we, so you can just, if you hop on the Zoom or the Discord. So, Sick Jason, what this leads to is the people that start with the food buying group. So, hey, I get 100 people that want to buy a dozen eggs a week. Now I have an order slip basically for 100 dozen eggs a week. Well, eventually somebody will see that and they'll say, hey, rather than you buying all your eggs from that one farmer, if I got like 5 or 10 chickens, could I sell you 30 eggs a week? And then more people see that, and more people see that. And eventually, we don't even need to buy our 100 dozen eggs from a farmer. We'll have 50 different local people offering us 20 eggs a week each. And that's where we're getting our 1,000 eggs, 100 dozen eggs a week from. So what we're actually doing is slowly building up our own economy. So this is what's so great. This takes politics out of the equation, because people that have complete ideological differences still want to shop somewhere that cares about them. They're sick of having to look at the back of the label to see what crap that corporation put in their food. So when you're calling up somebody who may have a vastly ideological viewpoint than you, you don't need to say, hey, drop out of the system, and this is why. And they get all upset because they don't want to drop out of the system. The system's all they've ever known. And people that even talk about the system are crazy because that's what the system told me to think. No, you don't have to go through any of that crap. Because let's be honest, humans don't change their mind very much, right? We're not very good at saying, I was wrong, I'm going to change my viewpoint and do better moving forward, right? I don't know what you're saying, Jason, because I've lived it. It is possible. You can beat corporations not by offering more products, but by caring more. That's literally all we have to do. Oh, I can start a business. And no, I'm not going to serve 1,000 people, but I could have 50 customers. And every one of those 50 customers is with me, not because I offer a vast array of products at a super cheap price. No, because I live in their community and because I care deeply about them, because I love my fellow humans, because I recognize that everything in life comes from somebody else's hard work. We drive in cars that we didn't build, on roads that we didn't pave, in buildings that we didn't build, and we all rely on each other. So I'm going to make sure that I provide the best quality food for you possible, because I know that if I keep providing quality food, you're going to tell your friends about it, because everybody is starved for quality food. That's exactly what it is. Yes, there we go. And that's what we are building. That is what the Discord is for. That is why we are spreading out across the country. But we pay, it's not a world without money. We still want, this is where co-ops, local businesses, they all make money. You have to cover the cost of living, of providing goods and services. But the whole thing is, the point isn't to make money. So when somebody controls, way to go, Coda. So when somebody controls access to what we need to live, and that person doesn't care about us, they use it to control us and exploit us. So they charge us $8 for a dozen eggs. But when somebody who is in the community that says, look, surely if I am buying 100 dozen eggs a week, I can find a farmer that'll sell us 100 dozen eggs a week for $3, $4 a dozen. And then I can tell all the people, hey, all you need to do is pick them up from this parking lot every Friday between 4 and 6 and Mondays between 9 and 11. And come pick up your eggs. Healthcare is the next step. We are going to build direct primary care organizations where, rather than paying all that money to the insurance company and barely being able to see the doctor, the same way we call up farmers and cut out corporations as the middlemen, we call up healthcare professionals and say, hey, we're sick of health insurance companies. We heard you are too. There's 100 of us that want to pay you $50 a month to take care of us. And we figured that if you are incentivized to do preventative care and make sure that we don't come in, because the less we come in, the less sick we are, the more money you make, we'd rather pay our money to you, local doctor. And we want to come see you instead of having to go through the corporations. Wow, Paul, that's incredible. That is a really big, somebody in the TikTok has direct primary care. And what it is about making more people aware of it. Having people understand that direct primary care is protest. Direct primary care is pushing back against the system. Food distribution is pushing back against the system. Making sure that we control the things that we need to live is the most powerful action we can take. So it's so funny. We have to understand that the political side, we're doing pretty good. But unless we can support ourselves economically, unless the economic aspect also supports what we're trying to do politically, we will never win. Luckily, the two things support each other to create a feedback loop. What's up, Chandra? Because when we protest and push back and boycott, what people need is long-term structure. Doing that is a lot of fun, but it burns people out unless they know that their efforts will pay off. So many times, unless people see immediate progress, they protest, they boycott, they burn out. What we are doing is showing people that, hey, we can never protest and boycott forever. What we can do is work on creating the conditions where we can protest and boycott for as long as we need to get back our leverage. Paul, if you're able to join the Discord, I'll put the link in, because what this is it gives you hope that your heart can stop hurting so much. Click the link in the bio, Chasen, and Discord is a new app that you'll download. It's basically a message board. So what it is, mass protests and boycotts bring the people, but those people need more to do. They don't just want to protest every month. They want to do shit in between that makes the protest more powerful. So what we are proposing is that every single boycott, protest, and mass action also has a way, a funnel that keeps people connected to build more local alternatives, to build more non-corporate options. Because the more people we have building non-corporate options, the bigger, now I can green-eyed, the more we have non-corporate options, the more stronger our boycotts are able to get, the bigger our protests are able to get. The bigger the protests and the bigger the boycott, the more people that we have available to recruit to help build a structure, which in turn makes the next boycott bigger. And because the next boycott is bigger, we have more people to build structure. And it is this beautiful feedback loop. Economic freedom and more choices lead to our voices being heard. The more that our voices are being heard, the more people will actually realize, oh shit, I can make a difference. As soon as people realize that they can actually make a difference, that's when it's game over. Because I think right now we're only in this position because so many people lose hope, because they recognize that corporations have us trapped economically, and us being stuck economically is keeping us boxed in politically. because the strongest thing we can do politically is have enough money to say, screw this, we are staying home for a month, but we don't have enough money to stay home for a month. So what we need to do is build local alternatives and create a new system inside parallel to the other one. And that system will work for us instead of against us. And broken systems, our current systems, do not get fixed because people follow them out of habit. They follow them because that's all they've ever known. Broken systems don't get fixed. They get replaced when a better option comes along. Black Camilla, that's really what it is. Protesting feels great. We go and do it. We see a million other people out with us during No Kings, and nothing effing changes. So we all have to go back to work, and we bust our asses, and we're too drained and too burned out and too tired to say, how do we get that to last long term? How do we keep that energy up every day? Well, we can't protest every day. We can't strike every day. We have to go back to work. But what if we had enough local options that we could replace everything that we relied on corporations for with a local alternative? What if the majority of people could get their food from a local food buying group? And then when they needed health care, they paid their doctor directly. And then their their housing and buildings weren't built by corporations trying to cut corners and make the most amount of money. It was built by people like Paul that say, I take pride in my work and I want to do the best job. And this is what it's going to cost, but your home will last for 30 years. If you buy a Ryan or a Lennar Homes, you're going to be paying $50,000 in fixes over the next 3 years. I might be $20,000 more, but you're going to save yourself in the long run because with quality work, you're not going to have to go back and fix your house all the goddamn time. So what we're talking about is how do we make strikes and boycotts even more powerful? Because strikes and boycotts are the strongest action that Americans can take to try to fix their situation. But unfortunately, corporations and politicians work together to kneecap the effectiveness of our strongest actions. Boycotts don't work because we don't have any other non-corporate options. Not that they don't work. They're difficult to make work. And strikes are near impossible because for strikes to work, the majority of Americans need to have savings. And the majority of Americans, 80% of us, don't even have 3 months or 6 months of savings. So what we need to do is understand, how do we make our protesting bigger? Because if we can make our protesting bigger, we have more people to recruit from to build the structure. If we can build the structure, it makes protesting and striking and boycotting much more effective, much stronger. If we can make protesting and boycotting and striking much more effective and much stronger, then we'll have more people show up. And when more people show up, we'll have more people to build local structure. It is a feedback loop. If we get this going the right way, it can be a small business revolution, a co-op revolution that changes the direction our country is headed in. It's just that for so long, we've gone to boycott, we've gone to protest, and we don't see anything happen. So maybe we don't go to the next one, right?